See how easy this works? All right, so Chuck, are you ready to go? Okay. I want to introduce you to Chuck Glover. Come on up, Chuck. You can stand with me for a minute. Come on over here, it's easier. Wrap lending, I love. The ROI is really high. It's more work. You got to manage more parts. But if you can nail it down, you're going to go from, say, a 15% ROI to, depending how you stack your variables, 40 or 50%, 20% on the low side. And Chuck's got a great way of presenting this. He's learned so much. This journey with Chuck, we were friends for a long time, but last year we went to Nicaragua together, and Cheryl and I and Chuck and others were sitting on a bus. I don't know, it was like a 3-hour bus ride, or a little van Carlos was driving, remember? And I had this, I don't know, I would say it was like a divine inspired thought that I would, while we're riding the bus, ask Chuck to speak at Dealmaker. He's never done anything like that before, have you? And so I did. I said, Chuck, how about if you talk about your story and wrap lending and stuff at Dealmaker? And he did that in March, and he blew the doors off the place. How many of you guys were there? I mean, chills, and I'm not exaggerating. And Chuck also has some imposter syndrome like I do. So he gets a little bit nervous. But we're going to do it again, and here we are. So you're going to learn a lot about the details of wrap lending and the practical side. You're going to learn the math, but you're going to learn the practical side and the relationship side of working with a co-lender and things like that. So Chuck, come on over here. I just want to say I love you, brother, and I appreciate you. And the way things work, starting on a bus in the middle of nowhere, Nicaragua, I suppose, with you taking 1 million pictures. Thanks for being an integral part of our Dealmaker community, and thank you for being really a trusted friend of mine. Yep. I'm going to put this in here. Yeah. You're ready to go. So on your feet, big round of applause for Chuck Glover.
It's Chuck in the house, but let me be clear. I'm the wrap lender.
There we go.
It's Chuck in the house, but let me be clear. I'm the wrap lender, not the rapper you hear. You need cash flow, stacking up the dough. I'm the man with the funds, not the mic at the show. I'm Chuck, the wrap lender. I'm breaking the mold, loaning out the green, letting dreams unfold. I ain't here to spit bars. I'm here to cut checks. With the wrap loan game, I'm serving respect. I'm Chuck on the rise, bringing loans, no disguise. Bringing your dreams to me, I'll help you realize. Rappers got flow, I got funds on my mind. With every rap loan, watch your pockets rewind. Ain't no label signing me, just clients on deck, making dreams come alive with the flick of my check. I'm the wrap lender, you can call me your friend, bringing wealth to the streets now and again. So remember my name, Chuck, the wrap lender on top. Rapping dollars, not verses, till the beat drops. I know mic, no booth, just a checkbook in hand. I'm the wrap lender, the wealth building man.
Woo! Yeah! Woo!
There's no room for imposter syndrome there.
I don't fashion myself as a speaker. You know, speakers have, excuse me, I just apologize now. I brought my frog with me this morning and he wants to croak. Speakers have style. They have panache or something like that. And I fashion myself more of a talker. So I'm just going to be talking a little bit. And it is interactive and we'll have questions and answers and so on.
How do we simplify?
But I'm not much of a speaker, and I can say that. I know people say, "Oh no, you're great."
Turn me off.
I have proof because a while back I was asked to at my church. The elders asked me would I deliver a sermon one Sunday morning. The preacher was on vacation or whatever, and I said, "Oh, okay, I'll do it." And somebody had to do it, and I guess the other people they asked turned them down. So I agreed to do it. I prepared. The Sunday came. I gave the sermon. Then after the sermon, I did what preachers do. I went to the door of the church and greeted people as they left and, said, please come back, so on and so forth. And this one lady comes up, walking towards the door of the church, and she had I didn't recognize her, she was a visitor. She had a little boy with her in hand, I don't know, maybe 5 years old, give or take. And she comes to, and, well done, enjoyed it. And I said, yeah, come back, nice to have you, and so on. A little boy reaches his hand up to me. And I'm thinking he's mimicking what he sees the adults do. He wants to shake hands. So I kind of squatted down and reached my hand out. And when I did, he put in my palm a crumpled up $1 bill. And I was, I guess I froze for a second. I wasn't expecting that. Didn't know exactly what was going on. And the mom kind of tugged his arm gently and led him out toward the door. And in a whisper you could only hear like 20 feet away, she says, why did you give that man your money? I gave you that for the collection plate. And the little boy looks up at her and says, but Mama, you said he was the poorest preacher you'd ever heard. I've got proof. So this morning I'll give some background a little bit and some warm-up, and then in a few more minutes we'll actually get into some numbers, some figures and how they work, the players involved, and I have 4 case studies that we'll look at very briefly and how the people are associated in the studies and so on and so forth. And then we'll pause and have a moment for questions. So we'll have 2 or 3 pauses through the morning for questions. The answer you get might be this. So if you get that answer, I guess most everybody knows what that stands for. A few years ago, that was a popular thing, wristbands and all of that stuff. Well, what it stands for, if you ask me a question, I'm not sure about the answer, I might say WWJD. And what that means is, what would Jeff, or Jim do? So between the 3 J's, we'll get the answers for you somehow, somewhere. The presentations so far yesterday were fantastic. A lot of talk yesterday during the panel discussions in the afternoon about RAP loans. RAP loans have been around for quite some time, decades, I guess. So they're nothing new. It seems like they're used a lot in the mortgage community, especially for seller finance deals and things like that. And in the investment community, I haven't met a lot of people who are familiar with them. We've heard the term, but they're not that familiar with them. And I will just briefly share with you how I stumbled upon this technique being a new investor. Wait a minute. You have gray hair, wrinkles, you're a new investor? I was talking to someone a while back, and I said something about investing since 70. And they said, you've been investing 53 years? And I said, no, not 1970, age 70. So I'm a relatively new investor, just kind of getting started. So still a lot to learn. So the question is this RAP loan thing, if we're going to sit here and learn more about the technique, the strategy, and so on, is it worth it? Does this thing really work? Well, let's say, on our a little example here, you're a lender. Now, picture yourself during this presentation, you're the RAP lender. A borrower has come to you and said, will you loan me $200,000 for 8 months? And you look at the deal and say, it looks great. Yes, I'll do that loan, and I'll do it for these terms that you see on the screen. So the 8 months goes by, the borrower pays his interest, the deal pays off, and you come out with about $6,000 in interest, plus a little bit. And the points, another $6,000. So in this 8-month time, you've profited a little over $12,600 and change. You started out with $25,000, and now you have $12,000 extra, so you're up to $37,000. In 8 months' time, you're up to $37,000 and change. Let's take it to another level, the next step. A couple other borrowers come to you, and they want loans. And one wants a loan for a couple $100,000. The other wants a loan for $175,000, and you're thinking, okay, these are good loans, I'll do these loans. So you set the terms, the borrower agrees, and they pay off. On the loan number 2, you're going to profit about $8,300 in change. On loan number 3, at these terms and over this length of time, you're going to profit around $7,000 and change. So now you have your $12,000 and a little bit more from loan number 1. You have $8,000 and change for loan number 2, $7,000 from loan number 3. So in
So someone else is putting in the difference between the 200 and 17.
we're going to go there. In fact, these are the actual case studies, and we're going to go back and dig down into the numbers and just how all of this came out. So at this point in time, after 15 months, give or take a month or two, you started with $25,000, and now your balance is a little bit over $50,000 in about a year and a half. Now think about this. What if you took it another level? So you've been a lender now for 2 years, and you've doubled your money. So you're going to keep making loans. Now let's say for that $50,000, you make 3 or 4 other loans, and on and on and on. And of course, the first year or two, you have some profit, but then think about this. After 4 or 5 or 6 years, things are kind of starting to multiply. So is it worth your while to think about wrap lending? For 3 of you, yeah, good. So for those of you 3, pay attention. The rest of you, see you later. Let me back up. So how did all this come about? I was new to real estate investment about 6 years ago, so I knew nothing about real estate investing. I'm not an entrepreneur. I don't have that spirit where I'm out there just seeing opportunities everywhere and so on and so forth. I was a school teacher, an educator for 27 years, a teacher and an administrator for 27 years. I wanted to do something on my own, so I started a consulting business. I retired and started a consulting business. Now, you know, I've learned quickly another word for consultant: unemployed. Hey, if you're not working, you're not earning, right, as a consultant. Nobody had me on residuals. I learned another thing, too. If you're a lawyer or an architect, an engineer, or a dentist or a doctor, and you leave and start your own practice, sometimes you'll have a customer or two or some that'll come over with you. So you have a little foothold there. Not too many third graders came over to my consulting business with me. So I didn't have any clients that had to work. So excuse me. So I did okay, ups and downs of consulting, did okay and all, but several years ago, things kind of got tough, and I won't go into all that story financially, and there's a lot poor financial decisions on my part. So that's why I often say I was 70, 5 years ago, I was 70 chronologically, and I was 20 financially. Now, we happen to have a 20-year-old in the room. Danny, would you stand up for just a second, please? Danny Bennett. He's 21. So 21, I was where he is today. I was there financially just a few years ago. Well, wait a minute. When you're 70 years old, you should already have, let's say, at least $200,000 or $300,000 in checking and savings accounts or CDs or whatever. Danny, you're 21 years old. College, you're a senior this year, right? Virginia Tech. And so do you have, let's say, $300,000 in your bank accounts or CDs? Or? I wish. Okay. So you don't. Well, now you probably do already have your IRA built up. So at 70 years of age, you should have what? Minimum like $600,000, $700,000, $800,000 in an IRA, if not more. Do you have that? I wish. Thanks, Danny. Let's hear it for Danny. Look, you need to know something about Danny. He was a deal maker in 2023. And I think it was March of 2023. And I met Danny at Dealmaker in 2023, and I was just chatting with him, and I said, you know, what are your goals? And he said, my goal is by the end of the year 2024 to have flipped my first house. And I just kind of looked at him and said, why not 2023? And instead of saying, well, I need to, excuses. Instead of saying, well, I need to study more, and I need to learn some stuff, and I need to graduate from college, and blah, 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 blah. By the end of 2023, he had flipped his first house. 2024, he flipped his second house. Danny found a way to pay his college tuition year by year, while many of his classmates were still racking up some of that college debt. He's found a way to pay off the tuition at age 21. These are the kind of people you associate with in this situation. So there I was, financially. And I looked at a couple opportunities and things here and there, and my son shared a book with me about 6 years ago. It was Cash Flow Quadrant by Robert Kiyosaki. Now, if you don't believe in divine intervention, you might in a few minutes. I do. I don't believe in coincidence. But he shared this book with me. I read about halfway through, give myself the head slap. Where was this book 30 years ago? This just might be something that'll work. Now, my first exposure, I say I knew nothing about real estate investing. Not quite true. I had one previous exposure with real estate investing just a few years ago. It's when a flipper bought my house that was going into foreclosure. And I hope that flipper made $100,000 off my house because of what he saved me from. But anyway, moving on. Knew nothing about real estate. Read the book. I said, this might be something I can do. And then 2 weeks later, after I read the book by Robert Kiyosaki, I saw an ad that said there was a meeting at the Sheraton Hotel in Richmond, not far from my house, a Robert Kiyosaki seminar. How to get involved in how to make money in real estate. The seminar was free. Well, you know, don't have any money. Free sounds really good. I went to the seminar. Now, I was a little disappointed when Robert didn't walk through the door. I guess people pay maybe royalty fees and they license his name or something and go out and do these seminars. But it was a good seminar. It really was. And one thing they said was, it's an upsell. They want you to buy some more seminars and so on. But one thing I got out of the free session was attend local real estate investor association meetings. I'd never heard of a RIA. Attend the meeting. So I went home, Googled it, found one. 2 weeks later, I was in a RIA meeting. There were 60, 70 people in the room, met a few people, kind of started picking up some of the lingo of what was a buy and hold investor and things like that. So I learned, well, this is how you do real estate. You start off by wholesaling. It's like you start in at the mail room and you work your way up to the executive vice president or something. So you start out wholesaling. That's just what you do. So I said, I'm going to be a wholesaler. So I did a few driving for dollars and sending out some postcards and for sale by owner, you know, call those signs and so on. And wasn't having much traction. So I thought, you know, this wholesaling thing, this might not be for me. And I worked at it for a whole week. So I decided, okay, I'll just go on to step 2. I'll skip step 1. I'll go on to step 2, which was flipping. So I had met a couple of wholesalers, got on a couple mailing lists, went and looked at a house here or there. Went and looked at this one house. I looked at the house and lost $2,500. So I thought, I don't think this flipping thing is for me. Hey, look, at 70 years of age, I don't want to be running around chasing contractors and putting up drywall and stuff myself. So I went, and I had gone to a couple more RIA meetings. Went to the fourth RIA meeting, and the guy in the room on that occasion, he happened to say, well, great, thanks for coming out to the room. 60, 70 investors. Let's see who's in the room tonight. How many flippers? Lots of hands go up. How many buy and hold investors are in the room tonight? Bunches of hands go up. How many money lenders are in the room tonight? One hand goes up. Not mine, it was somebody else's. And I thought, only one person. And after the meeting, people were flocking to him, getting cards and so on and so forth. And I said, maybe that's what I should do, be a lender. So that night, I decided I was going to be a lender. Now, there was one little catch. There was something I had to figure out. And, you know, I actually thought at that moment, a lesson I got, an incident with my father. Many years earlier, back when I was 20, Danny, I went and looked to buy a car, and my dad went with me. I was, still just graduating from college, and I was getting ready to get married, so instead of a motorcycle, now I'm going to need a car. So we went and looked at a car, and my dad went with me because he knows about cars. And it was a brand new car, 1970, a brand new car, cost $2,500. And on the way home, and I loved it. It was a perfect car for me, nothing fancy. And on the way home, I said to my dad, Dad, that's just what I need. I don't know how in the world I'm going to afford it. And he just kind of smiled and looked at me and said, you want that car? I said, yeah, because I'm getting married. I need a car. Starting my career as a teacher. He said, well, figure it out. And those words came back to me that evening after that RIA meeting. I want to be a lender. I've got something to figure out. So I studied about it and talked to a couple people and learned a little more. And then the next RIA meeting, the next month, talk about divine intervention. The next month, there was a young lady speaking at this. It was a local RIA meeting, not an event like this. And the speaker was a young lady from Georgia. I don't know if she'd ever been in Virginia before. Now, this is five and a half years ago, and I don't know if she's ever been in Virginia since. But that night, she was the speaker at the local, the local RIA meeting. Oh, thank you. And I was in attendance, and she talked about, for the 40 minutes or so, 30 minutes, she talked about wrap lending. And she put some numbers on the board, kind of like I did earlier. Is this worth it? Kind of put some numbers on the board, and I saw the returns and the percentages of the returns. And I said, well, I have a little bit of money. I've got what I need. The lady was Dorsey Botiford. And I got her contact information, and she was kind enough to invite me. After the meeting, I went up to her, talked to her, and to call her, text her, email her. And when I had questions, I had a lot of questions. So I emailed her, and she answered and responded and kind of held my hand through the process of getting started. That is what you call a transcendent moment. Think about this. What if that one night, because I'd been going regularly for 5 months now to RIA meetings, what if that one night I thought, I'm kind of tired tonight? I'll go next month. I've been attending pretty regularly. But just for tonight, it's been a long day. What if? What if I hadn't been there? Well, I was there and tapped into her knowledge and her wisdom, and so I kind of got started. And actually, I started to introduce myself at the RIA meetings. I'm a lender. And then I started reaching out to people everywhere and anywhere, anybody I knew, just talking to people about coming in with me, partnering with me on loans. And I found a couple people and did a couple loans. And then another incident came that I had a chance to attend another class. It was online. It was a Zoom class taught by Dykes Botiford. And it was on hard money lending, not just wrap lending, but hard money lending. But during that, I think it was like 2 days, during the course, Dorsey had a session in there, a little 45-minute to an hour session where she reiterated the wrap lending thing, so it helped reinforce. Changed my career, changed my life financially. It changed the whole world financially, these two people. And there were some other people involved too. And I might mention one just as recently as last year was a guy named Jim Ingersoll. Now, I hadn't spoken at an event like that. Jim had never heard me speak anywhere except just riding on the bus around Nicaragua. I'll tell you why we're there in a minute. He hadn't heard me speak anywhere. I hadn't done anything like this. He hadn't attended anything. I hadn't spoken at RIA meetings or even locally or anything, except for that one incident at church I had, which we won't go back there. But he asked me to be a speaker at Dealmaker. And scared to death and nervous, one thing I've learned, like what if I hadn't gone to the meeting when Dorsey Botiford was there? Okay, one lesson you learn is the what if. What if I say no to Jim Ingersoll? You know where I'd be today? I don't know. Maybe not here. Probably not here at all, because this was too high class for me. But moving forward. So what I learned was, and what I encourage you today is this: listen. Listen to advice. Listen to the instruction that you're receiving. Take it to heart. Pay attention to it. And then have the discipline to put something in action that you get from this. If it's wrap lending, have the discipline to put it in action. And if you do, you will walk among wise men. Not your wisdom, but his. Because what all this transcendent moments started and life-changing things kind of happened was in a more positive way when I aligned my purpose with God's purpose. And once I made that alignment, I had a lot of life-changing moments earlier, like spending all my money and being broke. Like instead of telling my employer I'm leaving, my employer told me I'm leaving. I had a couple of those incidents too. There's a whole lot of story there. But this transcendent moment was in a positive direction. So I encourage you to listen, learn, and then develop the discipline, not the motivation. Discipline trumps motivation. The discipline to act. What that wrap lending session was all about, and when we get more specifically to wrap lending, it's about leverage. We've all heard the word. We all sort of understand the term. Archimedes, a 1st century BC physicist, he said, "Give me a place to stand and a long enough lever, and I will move the world." It's amazing what leverage can do. In fact, that's what this shirt is about. It's about leveraging other people's money, other people's resources, other people's knowledge, applying other people's knowledge, people's time and talent, and then eliminating on the end of the formula is a little e, and eliminating excuses. And that equals massive achievement. So leverage is what is required to move to very high levels of achievement. And so that's what wrap lending was all about. And over 5 years, from checking my bank account on 2 or 3 times a week, hoping that some money got into the account before the check that I wrote for something else got into the account, so it would be covered. Now I check my bank account hoping there's nothing in it, because I want that money out there doing all the work for me. It's given me a life that 6, 7, 8 years ago I had put on the shelf. Dust had collected the dreams that were fading. Dreams that I've had for 50 years were disappearing. And now they're alive, and they're well, and they're here. And it's not just about making money, because I thoroughly believe that a blessing that comes to you isn't a blessing until it flows through you. And by the way, I got that from Tom Olson. Tom Olson is a big promoter of that, about being a conduit, not a bucket. Letting things flow through you instead of stopping here into you. And not only that, then there comes another level. Augie Bylot wrote a book called Act 2, From Success to Significance. So it's one thing to have some degree of success. Whatever your goals are, whatever your dreams are, to make those things come true, that's one thing. It's another thing to share it with the world. And that's why Jim and I were in Nicaragua. We were distributing wheelchairs to people who had no hope of ever having receive a wheelchair, not even a possibility. And here we are distributing wheelchairs, Chair of the Love. So I'm hoping that everybody in this room will hit that QR code and donate $20 a month. I would step out on a limb and say there's not one soul in this room that would even miss $20 a month. The distribution trips that we go on to, they buy these wheelchairs. Well, somebody has to make sure people get the wheelchairs, right? Well, we go on those distribution trips. We go on our own expense. Your money doesn't go to pay for me to go to Nicaragua. It goes for wheelchairs. I pay for me to go to Nicaragua. And I paid for me last summer to go to Africa for 3 weeks. I paid for me to go to Mexico. and I paid for me to do some other thing, to Alaska and stuff like that. So just do it. There's a table out there too, by the way, you can sign up. So moving on, I have to have my disclaimer, because we are going to talk numbers, and we are going to talk people doing deals together. I am not a lawyer. I am not a financial planner or an expert in any sense of the word. I'm just sharing from you this naive little investor, relatively new investor, from my personal experiences. In fact, I've already learned a couple of things I need to tighten up on my practices myself. But the things we share here are not for any kind of advice or instruction, simply for information is all I'm. So check with a professional if you have questions about your strategy. Wrap lending requires a different mindset. The key word on this slide for me is transparency. You all had experiences where you went to buy something, a home, a car. Contracts were long, signatures in 4 and 5 and 6 different places, complicated legalese, so on and so forth. Transparency in a wrap loan is even more important, I think, because of there are more people involved. There are more moving parts, I guess, and it's critical that everyone associated with the deal knows exactly who's getting what, who's doing what, and so on and so forth. So along with the honesty, the integrity, which is true in every walk of life for everything you do, transparency, underline that word on the slide. Notice the last line on the slide, and then you. Your goal is to enable other people to make their dreams come true. The underlying lender, the underlying lender, the person that's coming into the loan with you, the borrower, the family that's going to occupy that rental or that new home that they're purchasing. Then, after all those people have prospered in some way or another, you prosper, and you will prosper. Just keep keep it in order. Always yourself. So, what exactly is wrap lending? Basically, simplistically, it's two people coming together to make loans, to make a loan. Two loans merging in as one loan to a borrowing entity. So two lending entities, could be more than two, coming together, merging their money, and lending that one loan to a borrowing entity. So simplistically, this is what a wrap loan is. It's been around for decades, as we said before, usually in seller financing scenarios. Look, think of a wrap loan. Now, the thing about when I heard Dorsey Boddiford talk about wrap loans, and again during Dykes' class, I am a visual person, and her explanation was sort of in writing. You know, she had handouts and stuff. But I'm a visual person, so I pondered this when I was asked to buy. You know, all of my best ideas come from other people. So somebody had an idea. Why don't you do wrap loans, why don't you teach a class on wrap loans? Well, putting the class together is no problem, because I did that for 30 years as an educator. I did it for another 20 years as a consultant, so that wasn't a problem. It was just making it so people would get the message. So being a visual person, I drew little circles and one inside the other and all, and put colors on them, and then it dawned on me, that looks like a fried egg. So there's my fried egg. Picture a wrap loan as a fried egg. Notice that the underlying lender is in the center of it, right in the middle, and the wrap lender, the wrap loan, is all around it. So everything is included within the wrap lender's position or contribution in the loan. So picture that fried egg, two people coming together to make one loan to a borrowing entity. Caution. Wrap lending, in spite of the numbers I put up there earlier, in spite of the numbers I put up there earlier, is not, I said, well, in 3 years you double your money, 2 years you double your money. It's not a get-rich-quick scheme. It's not a scheme. It's not get-rich-quick. It's get-rich however quick you want to get rich, as far as are you willing to do the work. Because one thing I haven't mentioned yet are the several thousand miles I've driven in 5 years to go to meetings, local meetings, distant meetings, wherever, several thousand miles to drive. The money that it takes to travel and stay in hotels. And isn't this a nice place? This Hotel Landy? This is fancy. I'm not used to it. I pulled up by the front door, and I was getting out of my car, and some guy tried to steal it. He walks up to me with his hand out, I want my car keys. I didn't let him have it either, buddy. The towels in this place are so fluffy, I don't think I'm going to be able to get my suitcase closed when I leave. But anyway, back, where was I? Well, good morning. Welcome to the session this morning. It's not a get-rich-quick scheme. And I guess maybe over the past 4.5, 5 years, roughly totaling about 1,700 hours sitting in meetings and networking and communicating and building connections. So it's not, if you're thinking, oh, wow, this sounds great, there's work involved to it. So don't ever lose sight of that. It's not borrowing money from an underlying lender and then lending it back out. You have your own money in the deal. It's not brokering. So it's like, I know Joe and I know Fred. And Joe has a deal he wants to sell, and Fred has money he wants to lend. Well, Fred, I'll introduce you to someone who wants to borrow your money if you pay me a few $1,000 finder's fee, and then I'll put them together. It's not that. So as a wrap lender, you're involved in the deal also. You're not brokering deals. Why be a wrap lender? Well, I think, first of all, it's obvious to grow, especially if you have a small dollar account. A small account, whether it be whatever the account might be, a small amount of money, and you want to grow that amount of money. You want to have passive income. You have goals. You have financial goals you want to reach, and you see this maybe like I did. Well, this is a vehicle that would work with my circumstances and my situation. This was a perfect match. And you get to share the opportunity with others to build their wealth. So those are some basic reasons why you might want to think about being a wrap lender. There's a lot of talk, when it comes to wrap lending, there's a lot of talk about blowing up your IRA or your 401k. And I do lend from a self-directed solo 401k along with my own cash. So I loan from the 401k first and until it's depleted, and then I want to keep lending, so then I'll loan from my own cash as well. The reason I put this slide up, though, it isn't limited to just an IRA. That's, for tax reasons and so on, that's the ideal situation. But if you don't have much money in an IRA, you can still, if you have some cash on your own, you can still use it. So the idea is wherever the cash comes from, you can use it in wrap lending. Responsibilities. We live in a society today where a lot of people talk about rights. We have rights, and we do. Few people, those same people, talk about responsibilities, because along with rights come responsibilities. And I love sharing this with my grandchildren. Well, you're getting older now. You have a little more freedom. You have more things you can do on your own. There also comes responsibilities. A responsibility of a wrap lender, well, we mentioned transparency already. Commitment. Because when you bring someone else onto a loan with you, you better be committed to seeing that loan through to make sure it works out favorably for the underlying lender. You understand how to analyze a property. Understand how to do your business and conduct your business. Be organized. You're the one that's out there going to be finding the loans and bringing them to the table, so you have responsibilities to borrowers to make sure the money is where it needs to be to meet their time schedules, so on and so forth, and make sure they're living up to their end of the deal. So there's a bit of responsibility. I heard somebody mentioned yesterday during the course of various conversations, well, I assume. Never assume. If you catch yourself starting a sentence, especially as a wrap lender, if you catch yourself starting a sentence with, well, I assume the money is going to be there. I assume this person's going to do this, or that person's going to do that, or the closing settlement title company or the settlement people are going to blah, blah, blah. If you ever catch yourself starting a sentence with, I assume, stop right there. Make a phone call, send an email, send a text, communicate. Communication is a huge part of this. Communicate in some way or another to get an answer. I was talking to one of my borrowers. He's a relatively new investor. He has a mentor, but I asked him about inspections during his rehab. He said, well, I guess he didn't say it. I guess the contractor's doing that. And I said, is the contractor doing that? He said, well, I guess. And I said, let's end this conversation right now. Let's hang up. You get with the contractor and find out about when the inspections are going to happen. Have they been arranged and so on. After you find that out, call me back. They were arranged, no. That's the idea, though. Responsibility and being accountable. So don't ever assume anything. Okay, let's look at a deal. Let's go back to that first one we mentioned, the $200,000 loan for 8 months at 12% and 3 points. The borrower agrees, we make the loan. So the total loan, now we'll place it on our egg here. The total loan is, as we just stated, $200,000 at 12% for 8 months. The interest that the borrower will pay over the life of the loan, if it goes full term, full 8 months, would be about $16,000. And then the points, of course, are $6,000. So that's the total loan. The underlying lender, I found somebody to come into my loan. No, let's use you as the underlying lender. So you found somebody to come into your loan for $175,000. So how much money are you going to have in this loan? That's what you've got in it, $25,000. At this rate, the underlying lender is going to make the full term of the loan around $9,333 in interest. I'm getting the points as the wrap lender. And in case you're wondering, why does the wrap lender get all the points? Because I'm doing all the work, because you're doing all the work. You're the wrap lender, you're doing all the work. It's your deal. You're the one that brought it to the table. You're the one that's babysitting it. You're the one that's making sure it goes okay. The underlying lender doesn't have to lift the finger unless they want to. That's up to them. So you get the points. We'll go there. Let's go there next. The wrap lender. So here's where we got that $12,000 from. So the interest that the borrower paid, $16,000, minus the interest you pay out to the underlying lender, the $9,333, then that leaves you with the $6,667, and then you get the points. So that's where that $12,600 and change came from. That's your profit. That's how the money worked together. That's how you leveraged somebody else's $175,000 to build your wealth. And it shows how they leveraged you, your $25,000, and your knowledge that you applied to get their $9,000 in interest. Oops. Did I click it? Questions? So we went through one deal of numbers. What questions do you have? Glenn?
Just if the deal goes bad, who carries the responsibility of supporting that first lender with you doing all of the work and all of the management of the process? How is that managed if something doesn't go well?
Chuck, will you repeat the question so everyone hears it?
Oh, okay. The question is, what if the deal goes bad? The borrower defaults or whatever. How do you manage the fallout? Glenn, is that a fair restatement of what you're saying? How do you manage the fallout? The underlying lender, and again, this is how I structure the deals. Please keep that thought in mind the whole time. The underlying lender is always in first lien position. And that's okay with me. I don't mind taking second lien position for two reasons. First of all, I'm the one that brings in the underlying lender. So I know the underlying lender. We have it's not a stranger off the street. It's somebody I know and have done business with perhaps, or at least has a relationship with them. The second reason is it gives them confidence in the deal. If I'm willing to take second lien position because I'm not putting in as much money as they are, near as much, it gives them confidence because they're protected first. If anybody loses anything, I'm going to be the first one to lose. I don't say this to underline. I'll say this to you because if you're planning on being a wrap lender, I don't tell underlying lenders it's not a sales point. It's my personal philosophy. If the deal goes so bad that there's not enough, well, first of all, as you know, those of you who are lenders, you never lend what the property's worth. You lend a portion. So there you have some protection there. You have some equity protection. But if it goes so bad that there is money lost, it won't be the underlying lender's money, even if it comes out of my pocket. Now, I said that's not a discussion I have with underlying lenders. That's just the way my personal philosophy of doing business. Does that help your question?
Yes, you would carry it through the sale and through the legal process, then you continue to own that process as it moves to resolution.
Always. You own it from beginning to death. Whether the death be a good one or not so good one. From beginning to end, you as the wrap lender, you own that whole deal. Yeah, you're in control of the deal. That's another thing about being a wrap lender. A good point and a responsible point. You're in control of it the whole way through. Any other questions? Mary.
I don't have a question, I just have a point that goes to that. So when I am a wrap lender, I always ask the underlying lender to give me a power of attorney so that I can manage everything on the underlying lender's behalf. Doesn't take the power away from them if they want to take it back, but I can do it and manage it for them because they're just my passive investor.
Yeah. In fact, I made that note yesterday because I haven't been doing that, and I made that note yesterday to start doing that. So. Oh, I'm sorry. She establishes a power of attorney. She has a power of attorney that she agrees with the underlying lender. So if anything goes wrong, she can handle the business in place or for the underlying lender. So, Forrest, I think you were next.
My question is, your example is you're putting in roughly 10%, a little more, a little less on these deals. Do you have to put that much? I mean, if I was to bring $1,000 into a wrap loan, is that good enough, or why do you use those numbers?
This is just from people that I've talked with and who I've learned from. I have done deals, and I have an example of one up here I'll do in just a few minutes, my third case study where I put in very little, much less than that. John Heyer, who, by the way, is a brilliant investor. There are a lot of, I've been fortunate to meet a lot of brilliant investors, but the two I'll mention right at this point is John Heyer. And John says, have at least 10% in the deal. At least 10%. More is better. Rich Lennon, another brilliant investor in my eyes, he likes to have closer to 50%, 40 or 50% in the deal, more of a half and half. They just feel more invested. They feel the underlying lender understands you're more invested in the deal if you have a little more money in the deal. Now, as far as laws or regulations, ask the attorneys. I don't know if it's a legal thing, but it's good to have, I would say, a minimum of 10% because John Heyer knows a lot more about it than I do. So, yeah, Bill?
Hey, Chuck, so let's say it's a $200,000 loan, but you only have $5,000 in your IRA. That's all that's there. That's all the cash you got. Can you still do the wrap loan?
Yes.
Not 10%. That's all you got.
You could. You could still do the wrap loan.
And one follow-up question. This piggybacks on what you said, what Mary said. How important is where you're wrapping the first lender, how important is it for you to take care of that person so you brought into the deal in first position?
How important is it to take care of the person in first lien position? If I were to ask you to bring $150,000, $250,000 into a deal, that's a considerable sum of money. I think you would be hesitant to do it unless you felt pretty secure, trust in me, it's preeminent. It's like top of the pyramid. That's like the main thing, is that the underlying lender is protected. That at least, at minimum, they get their principal back and hopefully some interest. And on that line, I've had a deal that didn't go well. It went south. And the borrower, thankfully, the borrower had an integrity, and he sold the property. He just threw up his hands. He was no money into it to keep it. He sold the property at a loss, and over time, he did pay us back. But I made sure during that time, even though the payments stopped coming in for a bit, I continued to pay the underlying lender out of my money their monthly interest payments, because they need to be protected at all costs. Yes?
More on Mary's side of the questions. The borrower is used to paying the first lender.
Hang on a second, John, I'm coming. Everybody needs to hear your question. So what were you saying?
I was saying more along the lines, thanks, of Mary's question. The borrower is used to paying the first lender. How do you get the confusion out to get them to the second lender, and then when your wrap ends, then they gotta get them to go back and pay the first lender?
The borrower, again, the way I do it, the borrower pays me. I handle all the transactions, and so the borrower is paying me for those loans that do have monthly interest-only payments, because these are I'll do a short-term loan, so the interest-only payments. The borrower pays me, and I pay the underlying lender. So I know the underlying lender's got their money. I can keep track of all those expenditures and outputs and so on and so forth.
It also keeps the borrower from making two payments, which is easier, so.
Oh, much easier, yeah.
Because they were paying the first lender. Now they're paying you. Then they're gonna stop.
They've always paying.
Yeah, this is a new loan.
Okay.
So they're just going to be, and it's all written
Every
into the
wrap
agreement.
I do, the borrower pays me the entire thing, and then I cut a payment back to my co-lender.
And that's written into the documents too, that the money all comes to me and that I'm responsible. There's I guess an attachment or something that says I'm responsible for making sure. And my personal philosophy is the underlying lender is going to get their payment. Even if I don't, they're going to get their payment on time. But once I receive payment from the borrower, the underlying lender gets their payment within 24 hours. So you don't want to delay. I think back there was first. I'm sorry, Jim.
All right, and do we want to hold questions?
We can go ahead. Since you're here with the microphone, we can do this.
Okay, otherwise we can hold till the panel. Here you go.
Super quick question, Chuck, just to go back a little bit on the percentages in. I just want to clarify the 10% in and Rich Lennon's 50% in. You're talking about the borrower putting 10% in.
No, the wrap lender.
So the wrap lender.
So if we have, let's say you and I do a loan for $200,000, and I'm the wrap lender, and you're the underlying lender, Rich would feel comfortable with you putting in $100,000 and me putting in $100,000.
I see.
John Heyer says 10%, then you would put in, what did I say, you would put in like the 180, and I would put in the 20.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
For the wrap lender, the higher the leverage, the higher the ROI. So if I was doing that loan, I would look for somebody to co-lend with me at like 180, and I'm only going to put in 20.
And by the way, a couple of the
how I
case
do it.
studies I have up here, I have a case study where I put in most of the money. And I have another case study where I put in hardly anything. So all these little caveats are going to be addressed. We had a question back there?
All right, and then I
First?
think you should
Yes,
move
back to
on
first,
here,
Richard.
Chuck, for your case studies.
Okay, one more question after
Last
this.
question. Oh, hey, David.
Thanks, Chuck. Just curious, who's signing on the underline? Are you or the buyer or the borrower?
Doing what?
Signing on the underline. So is it a two-noter, or are you actually?
Oh, the way I do it is two. That's the way I do it. There are some others, I think. Jeff, don't you do one?
No, dos.
Okay, yeah. Yeah, that's the way I do it too. So. And last question, Richard? Randy, I'm sorry.
Yeah. So is there a separate set of documents that you
Oh.
have with the underlying lender, and then you have the one with the borrower?
Right, two separate sets of documents.
Two sets of documents, two notes, two mortgages or deeds of trust, yes.
So why would someone want to be an and we'll have more time for questions too, so make note of your questions. Why would someone want to be an underlying lender? If I'm making $12,000 off of 25, why wouldn't the underlying lender want to make, half of their 175, make $80,000 or something? These are the reasons. A lot of my underlying lenders are not real estate investors. They don't want to be real estate investors. I have two types of, two individuals I'm thinking of, two underlying lenders, because now I'm at the point where I have my underlying lenders who want to, once they get paid off, they want to come back for another loan. So I have one guy, once he wires his funds to the settlement agent for the borrower to purchase the property and begin their project, he didn't want to hear from me again. He wants to go do his thing. He builds medical office buildings. He just wants to go do that. And he says, I get enough emails as it is and texts as it is. I'm inundated. Don't worry about sending me updates and all. Just send me the money when the project pays off. He's hands off 100%. I have another one that wants me to CC him on all the emails and keep him up to speed, which is the way I do business, by the way. I'm going to put him in all the communications until they ask me not to. So the underlying lender has the option. They can be fully involved or go sit on the beach for 6 months and not even think about it. Their paycheck's going to be coming in. So they don't have to do any work. They don't have to know real estate. They can invest in real estate. They don't have to study it. Don't have to learn it. Don't have to know it if they don't want to. By the way, when I do have an agreement with an underlying lender, they do get all the information about the deal and the property and so on. It's up to them, of course, how much they want to absorb, but it's all there. What else? Oh, yeah, well, putting lazy money to work. We use the term lazy money. Money sitting in a CD or a bank account or a retirement account that's not making anything or making a very low percentage. We just refer to it as lazy money. So I'll give you an example. Last time I went for a dental checkup, I've been going to this dentist for a number of years. Great guy, so we kind of know each other and friendly and so on. And I go to a dental checkup, and he said something about, and the technician does the clean. He comes in, looks for a minute, and says, "You're good. See you later." Well, he took a moment. He said, "How's things going?" I said, "Business is going fantastic," and it is. And he says, "Oh yeah, what are you doing?" I said, "I lend money to real estate investors, and every now and then I look for somebody to come in on some deals with me if my money starts running a little low." And I said, "Do you think that's something you'd be interested in?" Now this is in the dentist's office, right? And he said. He didn't even answer. He pulled out his business card and handed it to me. But it wasn't his dental business card. It was his personal card with his personal cell phone number on it. He said, "Yeah, let's talk." So how do you find underlying lenders? He's with the dentist. He doesn't want to do real estate, but he wants to put some money to work. So underlying lender, what more passive way can you think of to make money? My nephew, he still can't believe it. He sent me an email the other day. He said he has $100,000 in to along with me now. He sent me an email last week and said, "I have $30,000 more if you have a deal," because he's just enjoying life. But that's why people would want to be an underlying lender. The benefits of oh, you mentioned paperwork. Now, this doesn't list the legal documents. So there are legal documents, and I didn't add them on here. There's notes, deeds of trust, or mortgages, depending on your state. These are the forms I've developed. So I have an agreement form with the underlying lender. So somebody asks you for a loan, let's say. They send you the information, all the information you need to analyze the deal. You analyze the deal, and it's looking pretty good. So then you reach out to an underlying lender, someone you know who's expressed an interest. And you send them some of the basic details and say, "Is this something you might be interested in considering?" And if they say yes, then I'll call them, talk with them, answer questions, and so on. But then I'll get them to sign an agreement form that shows me they're willing to commit their part of the money to the deal. So I've developed that underlying lender agreement. Then I have an agreement form with the borrower. This is not the notes and the deeds of trust. That comes next. It's just a form. It says, if I give you this loan at these terms and these conditions, and it's all spelled out. It's only a couple of pages. But these are all the numbers. These are all the terms and conditions, etc. Is this something, would you want to do this deal with us? And they sign off on that. So once we get to that point, then comes the legal paperwork. We get the notes and deeds of trust drawn up, all the insurances in place, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And then and this was Jeff Watson's idea. I got this from him. He was speaking at Dealmaker a couple years ago, and he mentioned this instruction to the lawyer and the settlement agent. And what the instructions do, you know, the forms have all the numbers in them, but it's pages of stuff, 3, 4, 5 pages of stuff. So I break all that out. The underlying lender is so-and-so. Wrap lender is so-and-so. This person has this much in it. This person has this much in it. The time frame, the points, the interest, it's broken out in little boxes, boom, boom, boom. So it's an instruction sheet and plus some wording, a letter to the involved parties so everybody knows exactly how the numbers are working and what's going on. Let's look at another deal. Now, on this deal, I mentioned that when I do a deal, I keep the points because I'm the one doing the work. So the points, I make some money in interest and the arbitrage of interest, but mainly my money is in the points. So I keep the points. And I've been asked, well, why can't I have a point? Or do you share a point? Or how do you do the point? I say, well, the reason I keep them is because it's my deal. I'm the one that brought it to the table. I'm the one that spent all those hours at those meetings and driving and meeting people and having people, sourcing deals. Plus, I'm the one doing all the work. And normally people say, oh, cool. So they just need to understand, that's all. And I have had a couple of people say, well, I want part of that action. And I said, how much work are you going to do? And then they kind of just stand there and say, probably we're not going to be good business partners. You don't have to do a deal with everybody that wants to do a deal. You don't have to make a loan to everybody that asks for a loan. I turn down lending on more loans than I lend on. And the reason is I'm not going to bring your $200,000 into a loan if it's close, if it's questionable. If the borrower isn't making, I don't know, it's hard to come up with the figure, but I say at least netting $20,000, $30,000 at least on a flip, then I don't want to be the lender because I want the borrower to do well. My purpose is for them to make money. I'm going to make my money. I want them to make money. And that's when you have customers people that will want to come back to you. And whenever I turn a loan down, I make sure they understand why. I write it all. I don't just say, no, sorry. I write it all out. I've come up with my numbers and my ARVs and my estimates for repair because I go look at properties and compare, and then I'll invite them to share information that I may not understand if my numbers differ greatly from theirs. And I have had borrowers write me back later and said, thank you for not lending on that deal because it kept me from something. Let's go to this one. The borrower he's asking you for $130,000 for what? 6 months. So you come up with some terms and you send them to the borrower. The borrower says, okay, that's good. I'll agree to that. So now you're into this deal. Again, here's the total on our little egg that shows the wrap loan includes the underlying loan. 11% for 6 months. So what's the underlying lender going to come out with on this deal? The underlying lender's in for $125,000. And they're in at 9% for 6 months. And this is the money they're going to make. Notice I gave them a point. On this deal, I did give the underlying lender a point. And the reason is this. Notice how much money the wrap lender has in the deal. So you see that number, right? And notice what the whole loan was for. You see that number over top the egg. So how much money did I have in this deal? It's under those percentages that John Heyer and Rich Lynn, it's under the percentages they were talking about. It's not very much money. And realizing that and appreciating the underlying lender who was willing to put $125,000 at risk against my $5,000, I said, look, you deserve a point, at least 1 point. I'm going to give you a point too, because I appreciate you coming into the deal with me. So the borrower made, as you can see how the total, $6,800 profit. So what about the wrap lender on my $5,000? In at 12%, 6 months, The interest that was paid minus the interest that went to the underlying lender is what left over is what I have. So in this case, it's $1,500. And you can see on top of the egg there in the white, the total interest paid minus the interest that went out to the underlying lender, and I get the $1,200 that's left over. And I get 2 of the points. There were 3, well, I get 2 of them. So my points total $2,600. So how did I do with my $5,000? I made $4,175 on that deal. The underlying lender's happy because they made, what, $6,000 so? And I made $4,000 some. Win, win, win. The deal was done. So this is a loan where I had very little, and this maybe goes to some of the questions that were asked. I had very little money in the deal. Questions? Yes.
Good morning, Chuck.
Good morning.
What is your LTV on your loans typically?
The LTV typically on my loans in this market right now for the past year or so have been 70%. A couple of years ago, I had it like somewhere around 65%, minus repair costs. Questions?
Chuck, we have a question from Zoom.
Okay.
And they're asking,
I didn't know there was a Zoom.
why don't you tell the underlying lender that he would sacrifice his own profits if the deal went south? Seems like that would give extreme confidence.
Why would I tell the underlying lender or would
Why don't you?
Oh, I see. I don't want to use that as a marketing tool. I know in my heart that underlying lender is going to get their principal back. It might take a while. If I don't have the money on hand, they're going to get their money back. I don't want to use that as a marketing tool. Because I see too many marketing gurus and things out there of people making promises that are kind of sketchy or questionable. So my personal choice is it's going to happen. I don't need to use it as an advertisement.
How do you keep track of all this, all your loans?
I am a caveman I'm a 20th century person in a 21st century world. Spreadsheets. I know there are all kinds of software out there that people have mentioned. I don't have that high of volume. I mean, like Wendy Sweet as a lender, she probably gets, I don't know, a dozen applications a day, maybe a lot more. Mary Hart, she probably gets bunches of applications. They have a lot to keep track of. Right now, I have out, we're talking about the percentages of return, though, 30, 40, 50%, 70-some percent was that last one, 80% return on the money. I have about 13 loans out right now that are wrap loans. And I have about 8 that are just me loans. So maybe 20-some loans out right now. It's really not that much to keep up with, and I've been able to do it through spreadsheets, and I'm not out to all of a sudden have 100 loans out there and stuff. That's not my goal. So the money is okay just on that number. So I just use spreadsheets. Any more questions?
Great questions, actually. Thanks for asking those off live stream, too.
Absolutely. So let's look at another deal.
Oh, we got another question.
Oh, another question. Go ahead.
Everybody tracking? I think you are. I can see you're engaged and wheels are turning.
Tell us about all the possible risks.
Well, all of them is a big word. How do you manage the risk?
That's tomorrow's session, right?
With Jeff Watson, yeah.
The risks in wrap lending are very similar to risks in any other type of lending. You know, the risk that the borrower ghosts you, doesn't show up, skips town or whatever. The risk that the paperwork might be faulty. I don't know, you guys could probably throw out a dozen more risks. The idea, like Jim said, is risk mitigation. And before the loan even goes out, and that's the purpose of the communication. Be an excellent communicator, whether it be by phone, email, text, whatever. Just be an excellent and consistent and frequent communicator. That's part of risk mitigation. That everybody, the biggest reason, Chuck Glover opinion, no scientific data, the biggest reason for failure, for collapse on a deal, in my estimation, is unmet expectations. So everybody, this is where the transparency is so important. I need to know the underlying lender's expectation, every expectation. And if it's an expectation I'm not able to meet, then it's not a good partnership. Or I'm able to explain something and temper those expectations. The RAP lender's expectation of the borrower. Let's talk about it before I put my $400,000 in your hands. Let's make sure everybody's on the same page. The paperwork, communicate the instruction sheet to the lawyer and to the settlement agent to make sure everybody understands every aspect of the deal. Who's getting this percentage, that percentage, where do the points go, what do these total up at, what does that total up at, the length, and all these kinds of things from start date to end date. Everybody knows that information. So I know it might be kind of a superficial answer. Does it help?
Good questions.
And there's more to come. So more of this information will be coming out this afternoon and tomorrow. So there's plenty more information coming. 2 underlying lenders on this one. So another example, and it could be more than 2. The most I've done is 4 underlying lenders, but I use this example for 2. So the borrowers ask you for $205,000. Excuse me. For 9 months, so you come up with these terms, the borrower agrees, you've got a deal. So this is what it looks like on our egg. We have 2 underlying lenders, and the terms are satisfactory for everybody. So the total interest over the complete life of the loan, the total interest that the borrower is going to pay is $18,000 and change. Points, 4,100. The underlying lender has in, underlying lender number 1 in this deal had in $135,000. They came in at 10% for 9 months, and this is what they're going to make, $10,000 and change in interest over the 9 months. Notice that I've added a percentage up by the underlying lender's amount. When you have more than one underlying lender, their percentages have those percentages in there. They're very important. The second underlying lender came in for $60,000. Same terms, same length of time, and they're going to make $4,500 over the life of that loan in interest. The RAP lender. So we have the $18,000 in interest paid by the borrower. We have underlying lenders 1 and 2 making a total together, the 2 underlying lenders, that adds up to $14,625, which leaves for the RAP lender $3,825 in interest, plus the points, $4,100. So in this deal, I made $7,900 off my $10,000. People ask, how is it? In fact, just last month I had somebody, how do you pronounce it? Usury? Usury? Whatever you pronounce it. This is usury. You loaning people, you're making 70% interest, that's illegal. No, the borrower only paid 12%. It's leverage. You see, leverage is about position. Position your money in such a location that it can lift the world. If your money is standing in the right place, it can lift the world. Yes?
Do you present just like this to the underlying lender?
No. This is just put together for this presentation. And in a way, yes. It's not just like this, no. The information, though, absolutely. Thank you for that question, because I meant to mention this earlier. Well, does the underlying lender know you're lending it out at 12 or 13% and you're paying me 9% and you're charging points? I didn't know this. My underlying lenders know every penny. They know what I'm lending out. They know before, when we first start talking, I tell them, how it works, I borrow the money, you put in some money, and I put in some of my money and lend it, and I'm going to charge whatever the percentage is. And I'm paying out from that percentage, I'm paying you X percent, whatever it is. So they know right up front. Communication and transparency. Jeff?
Oh, hang on, I got the mic. Who had a question?
Yeah, Christy had a question.
Hey, Christy. Christy's doing long-term, by the way, which is amazing. All right. Here you go.
So in this scenario, you're going to have 3 deeds of trust, 3 promissory notes. Is that correct? But you have
I meant to mention that. Thanks, Chris. I meant to mention that. Notice, let me back up. Notice the percentage. So underlying lender 2 is in for 31%. Underlying lender 1 is in 69% of their share. Of the $195,000 they're putting in together, those are the percentages of their share. That goes into the first lien.
Jointly own the first
Yeah.
position note and mortgage at that respective percentage as tenants in common pari passu.
But could you do intercreditary as well? I mean, there's a couple ways to structure, right?
You would have an intercreditor agreement between them as well.
Right.
And at what point does that become pooling funds? It's just
Oh, we got a brainstorming.
They each own a half or a quarter of that note. It's not a security, it's not pooling funds.
Yeah, I wanted to make, I knew that, but I didn't know if the audience knew that you have to use the proper paperwork in order for that.
All the paperwork this afternoon and tomorrow.
Well, okay, Jeff.
It's going to be good. Intercreditary. Here you go.
Yeah, going piggybacking on what Jeff said. So Jeff's having 2 owners of the same note, and in what we do, we'll use 2 different notes, but 1 mortgage. So each lender has their own note, but there's 1 mortgage, so they're both in first position, being secured by 1 mortgage on 2 different notes from 2 different lenders.
Isn't there so many ways to structure debt? Here you go, Yvonne.
Quick question. I don't know if I missed this. Is the underlining lender writing the note to you as the RAP or to the borrower?
Everything's to the borrower.
Everything goes to the borrower.
Great question. It's a difficult concept to wrap your mind around, in my opinion.
And you know, Jim, this is why I want to thank you so much, because when Jim first asked me to come speak, I think it was like a 45-minute block, and I said, you know, let's take a couple hours with it. And that's why this session is kind of long, because it does take a few minutes to kind of start thinking, yeah, thank you.
Chuck, I'm going to back you up about 4 minutes back to that wonderful topic of usury where everybody catches their breath and starts to panic. Okay? Usury is calculated on the overall entire enchilada, not on just what the RAP lender is making. Okay? It's on the total thing. So the whole loan of $295 at 12% with a couple of points is what the usury calculation will be looked at. It's nowhere close.
Leveraged lending is powerful.
Thanks, Jeff.
You can move the world with a small
question
amount.
here,
All right.
question there.
I'm curious, so you're doing both, wrapping and then doing loans yourself. What's your preference? Because, you know, doing it by yourself, you don't have to go through all this. I mean, you just get to do it by yourself and enjoy that. But your returns are better with wrapping. So how did you decide which route to go?
This is, how do I decide which route to go? The one that makes the most money. And
There's an honest answer.
Well, but there's a reason. The reason for that is, no, the question is a valid question. The reason is I'm not young anymore.
I think you are.
I don't have a lot of time left. I'm in the last 3/4 quarters of my life, and I know that. And my children don't want to hear me say that, but it's important to know that because it helps me set my goals for now. So I want to make maximize my return for now. It is more work. I want to a little bit, not that much, but I want to maximize my return. But now I'm getting to the point where I'm going, and I love the panel yesterday, right? And I've talked to Tim Davis about this prior, I think, in Nicaragua. I'm getting to the point now where I'm starting to look at syndication because I just want to back away. I just want to travel the world. I want to have experiences and do things. I want to come down here to Florida and ride on an airboat with Tom Nardone. I want to go hang out in Ohio with Steve Zahala. I want to fly in airplanes with Eric And, that stuff. There is an evolution. So I am pulling away a little bit from the wrap loans and maybe even traditional loans. Thank you. Personal goals. Randy?
Yeah, I saw that you had different APRs between the wrap lender and then the underlying lenders. Right.
So where are we at?
You make money on the interest and on the points.
Right, but earlier on, that wasn't the case, right? I mean, in the beginning, when you started doing the different case studies, right?
Yeah.
So you changed.
Yeah, I've always made money off the interest.
Sure. Okay.
A little
That's
bit.
good.
A little bit.
Sure.
A little. Yeah, there's going to be a little bit. To Randy's point, though, the idea is how much do you make off the difference in interest, if there is a difference in interest. Keep in mind, these are your decisions. I decide, I have talked to some lenders. They have an underlying lender that do wrap. They have underlying lenders that are happy with 7% or 8%. I just personally decided I'm going to pay 10% to my underlying lenders, but I'm not going to charge like 15%. Again, personal decision. It's completely an individual thing. It's okay for me to make a little bit of money off the interest as long as they understand whatever the points are, I get it. I'm going to get that. And it's working out well. But it's up to you. These are your decisions. Was there one more question? Yes.
So you're babysitting the deal. So when you do that,
Hang on, Patty. I'm coming. Let's. Now, here we go. Patty Bain.
So you're hand-holding essentially when you're wrapping. So when you do that, you have to vet. So what is your vetting process for the borrower and for the lender because you're bringing both to the table? So what do you have in place that helps that, to make sure that they're both a good fit for you and they're both a good fit for each other?
How do you vet a deal? How do you analyze a deal? Well, the starting point is going to look at it. So I don't lend on distant properties. I have made loans in properties in West Virginia, North Carolina, Florida. One of those homes is in Sarasota, as a matter of fact. But only if the borrower has boots on the ground to manage the project, not a contractor, but them. The borrower lives in the area or something like that. But go look at the property. Have an inspector. Now, I'm no contractor and inspection genius, so I have a guy that I bring with me, and his purpose is to analyze rehab costs. That's his business. That's what he does. He's a former contractor. In fact, he was with FEMA, the federal government. He went into disaster areas and analyzed the costs for building new towns and cities. But he goes, and he charges a couple $100, but it's worth it. He goes and looks at the property top to bottom, under, over, and everything, and he gives me a detailed line item report on expenses, what it should cost to repair at that day's material costs. So I have people that I take with me. ARV, of course. I have a couple realtors that I call on to help me with ARV if there's a problem, if I'm not able to kind of figure it out for the neighborhood. You do want to see the neighborhood too, though. Not just the property. You want to see the houses around it, and that, what's that like? Would you? Somebody mentioned, I think yesterday, I've heard it before. Would you like to live there, or would you not mind living there? So that's kind of a key thing, is the neighborhood and so on and so forth. I like that going in neighborhoods where people are out in the summertime, where people are out walking and strolling in the street or jogging or something, as opposed to like a ghost town. But the ARV, and then so double check the repair costs, because somebody mentioned yesterday, be conservative, borrowers, be conservative, because I have gotten deals where the ARV was $40,000 or $50,000 more than what I figured, and I'm going to loan on my numbers when there's a discrepancy, and I'll ask the borrower, where'd you get your thing? I ask for all their comps too. Sometimes the comps are 2 miles away, to raise the value of the property. So do all that due diligence yourself. Title search, of course, there are the legal aspects of it. There are title searches that are done, and you get those reports, the title binder that you get. I know that's a quick answer, but yeah.
Chuck, I got a quick question for you. Let's say you need to bring in 3 or 4 lenders or 2 lenders. and, you know, one lender's okay with 8, but another guy has to have 12, and another guy has to have 10, and you need to pull it, or you need to put it together to make it work. Does every lender know what the other lenders are making? Because that's going to put you in a position where, well, why? All of a sudden, you're vulnerable there for that situation. How do you handle that?
Well, me personally, the ones that I have done with more than one underlying lender, they all get the same rates. That's all the same terms. If you do have a situation where those of you who do wrap loans, have you ever had a situation with 2 underlying lenders or 3 and they had different amounts? I've never done it that way myself.
No, I would keep them all the same. And in fact, all my wrap lenders are all the same at 9% all the way across the board now, because it's too hard to keep track of and it's more fair.
Yeah, it's more fair.
It's a good question. Now, we have time for one more question.
By the way, I was the alarmist that called him for the usury thing.
Okay.
What I wanted to know was, can you, and maybe this is a Jeff question too, if you take the points out and you pay them up front, does that change that consideration of usury? Or can you
There is no usury. There's no usury on this.
Yes, it does. Because I get all of these calculations are actually the amounts on here are if the points were paid up front. I personally always have the points paid on the back end with payoff. There is a calculation that if your points are paid on the back end with payoff, then that amount is also can be interest, can draw interest. So actually, instead of $6,000, $4,100 in interest, if the interest were paid off on the back end, it might be closer to $4,300. It does change the calculation a little bit. And I am no math person. I picked that up from Dykes Botiford's class. And he explained the points paid on the front end, the points paid on the back end. So, yeah.
Last question.
Christy?
I hope I'm not beating a dead horse, but in my mind, if I have a repeat borrower and I want to give them 10, and then I have a new borrower, I want to give them 8. I don't see anything wrong with it. I'm correctable though, but.
A borrower or a co-lender?
Co-lender, excuse me, co-lenders.
You can do it any way you want.
Who
I
has the
wouldn't
goal
jump
makes
to
the
8
rules.
to 10.
You're in charge. You as a wrap lender are in charge of the whole deal. As long as, again, this is my personal philosophy, as long as everybody in the deal understands what's going on. And the reason for that is when I go to bed at night, I can sleep soundly. If you go to bed at night and you're thinking, I hope somebody doesn't find out so-and-so, then you're making a mistake. You're treading on ice. So, no, it's whatever you do, just make sure everybody knows about it, and they're with it. I've had a person I was asking about being an underlying lender, and they were upset about the amount of money they're made, and my response was, people who worry about how much money other people make are never going to be rich. Either you're happy with your part of the deal or you're not. You know, we're not business partners. You don't do business with just anyone. It has to be a good symbiotic match. Okay, where are we? Oh, we already hit that part. Let's move on. Okay, another lender. Now this deal is where I put in most of the money. So the underlying lender, people think, well, first lien position has to be who put in the most. Second lien position, you know, doesn't it? It's not that way. I'm second lien position in this loan, and I had most of the money in because I want my borrower, my underlying lender, to feel secure in doing business with me and coming into a loan with me. So these are the terms. We'll put it on our egg, $230,000 for 13%, 6 months. The total interest that the borrower is going to pay over the full life of that loan is $14,950, the $0.6900. So that's the deal. That's the total deal. Underlying lender had in $110,000. So how much did I have in this deal? $120. So I had a little bit more than, and that's not normally the way you do a wrap loan, but this was a really good deal, and I wanted to land on the deal, and I didn't have the whole 230, but I was happy just to get in on the deal, and I found somebody that had 110. I said, well, yeah, put it in, and I'll put the rest. So that's how it came to be. At 8%, six months. So they'll get $4,400 in interest. Me, as the underlying lender, I put in 120 at 13%, 6 months, and I get $10,000 in interest and $6,000 in points. And the math is over here. The total amount that the borrower paid minus the amount the underlying lender received, and I get what's left. And it turned out to be $17,000. So we've seen numbers up there, 40%, 50%, 70%, 80%. Well, in this deal, I lent it out at 13%, but my return on my money was 15%. So I was happy with that. And the borrower is happy, and he did a great job on the project, and we will still do business together. I know a lot of, go ahead, quick question. WWJD. I mean, I feel comfortable doing wrap loans. I feel comfortable with my underlying lenders, and I feel comfortable with the structure of the deal. Yvonne, did you have a response to that? Oh, let me get, so Mary, did you have a response to that?
Well, I'm not sure I understand exactly what you're saying, but if you're just putting somebody in a second lien, then they're gonna get the 13% as well. So if you don't do the wrap, he's not gonna make the spread, I think, is what I heard.
No, but I meant you would just take a second position, 15%. Your yield was going to be 15% after the spread on the wrap, right?
The spread on the interest of what the underlying lender made and what I laid was that I made 15% back on my money, return on my money.
So on the regular second, what's the interest rate being paid to the second position lender, and the first? Yeah, I mean, you could, but.
Do it a couple ways, a lot of ways to structure.
I guess that comes up because in that particular example, you put so much.
Oh, let's skip that. Questions? Yvonne?
Hang on, Navon. I'm coming. Come to me, brother. Dealmaker Orlando, in your hometown.
So this is kind of a tax question. I know you're not a tax advisor, XYZ, just friend to friend. So I'm a buy and hold investor. I get a lot of depreciation, all that jazz. I also have a W-2, so I love that, right? As I look at this model, what are some tax advantages, doing wrap lending as you're making, cash 50% on average? What are some? Are you paying taxes on that, or how does that work?
Yes, with the money that comes back on my personal money that I lend out, that's capital gains.
How about in your solo 401k?
Yeah, that's taxable income. In the solo 401k or the IRA,
Pretty nice.
That's shielded, I guess, for now anyway. So
It's a great way to grow a small dollar IRA right here. I think it's the best way, personally.
And I love it because I'm 76 years old, so I have to take money.
76 years young.
I have to take money out of my solo 401k. I have to take money out of it. So this year I had to take a number of thousands of dollars. I was able to put twice that back into it. So my 401k now compared to 5 years ago is like 7 times what it was or more than it was just a few years ago. And I've been taking money out of it.
So
it works.
When you're receiving payments from the borrower and then you pay your underlying lender, are you reporting 1099 interest forms to the underlying lender from your solo 401k?
There are 1098. I do 1098s to the for tax purposes, yeah. So the borrower gets the 1098. This is how much interest. It's 1098 mortgage.
Okay.
This is how much interest you paid me this year.
So you will bring individuals in as underlying lenders and not just stick to LLCs as well?
Yes, yeah. As far as from the lender part of it, like when I lend my money, it's Chuck Glover. I don't have to worry so much about LLCs because the lender, and those of you who are lenders, you know this, we don't have the exposure to risk that the borrower has. If you own the property, then you've got all kinds of issues. That's why you have these insurances and stuff to go. As the lender, you don't have all those risks. Yes, Steve?
So let's say I run across a severe amount. Of course, the most anxious an investor is when their money is either invested or not invested. If somebody comes to you and says, Chuck, I got 300 grand, I want 8%, but I want you to guarantee you're going to give me a whole year's worth of investments. Or, I mean, they want their money, because when the smoke clears, if they only got their 8%, 200 grand invested with you for a 6-month deal, and then you don't happen to have another one, do you have any kind of structure or way that you handle somebody who says, I'll give you a good rate and I'll give you a guaranteed amount, but I want you to make sure it's invested for an entire year? Can you tell us how you would handle that?
And simply, with me being just me, I'm a simple guy, I say, call Jeff
Simple's
C.
good.
Call Jeff C. Because he will take the $300,000 and he can put it to work year after year after year.
Call somebody else.
What I do is I do a deal, because when you come into a deal, when my underlying lender comes to deal with me, they understand it's that deal for that number of months.
It's the difference between doing a wrapped lending on a deal or investing like in Randy's fund over here for mission funding.
So nobody.
Right? If it goes into your debt or equity fund, it just goes in.
Oh, let me go back to one question you said about lending with to an LLC or from an LLC. The exception that the people lending from a retirement account. So if someone's lending from a retirement account, let's say Inspira Company, whatever the title is, FBO, Chuck Glover, account number, blah, 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 that has to be the entity. It's not the individual, it's the entity if it's from an account like that.
And this is going back to what was just, he's gone. Okay, we just talked about. For most of us in this room, there are mom and pop investors. You're going to find people that want to give you the $300,000 and keep it and pay me 8% per year. For God's sakes, don't do it. On the deal, they wire the money to the closing attorney. You heard Watson say that yesterday. It goes to the closing attorney of the title company. And then when that deal pays off, it goes from the closing attorney of the title company back to them. Do not keep that money in your account. I have seen so many people over the years get themselves in trouble because they're sitting with the money, and they do stupid things. Okay? So just don't do it. Don't take the money. Go back to them and say, we'll find you another deal. Go find another good deal.
That is a great point. Thank you for making that. Okay, Rebecca has a question. Remember, we're doing another lending panel right after break. So,
in fact, the only way money moves in my deals, the only way, other than from the borrower to me, the only way money moves is from me to the underlying lender. It never moves in the other direction.
Coming back to the tax question, do you own real estate, and are you utilizing depreciation to help offset the capital gains you're getting with lending? I'm not a tax professional, but that has been helpful for us, and we also get pass-through depreciation through our syndication. So are you utilizing that to help? Because obviously taxes are rough when you're making the money that you're making. So how are you mitigating that?
That I pay Uncle Sam.
Yeah.
And I'm happy all the way to the bank.
Good.
No, I don't own rental properties, and I don't do
But
flips.
when you're doing the deals in your solo
I'm a
401k,
lender.
you don't. It's all tax-free forever.
Yeah, I'm a lender. That's what
Yep.
I do. So
That's good. One last one. Michelle, how are you?
Thank you, Chuck, for this information. In thinking and listening to you and trying to apply this into my thinking, my only thought is, I know you've been to these seminars and you have probably a file drawer of file forms and all of your structures in place, but do you run every deal by an attorney just to make sure you're not missing something? So there's a step in here that you you have to add, then you have to pay that attorney, of course. So do the fees, for the contractor to go out, these are where I get into the weeds or get too detailed, but even though these are the simple and the straightforward returns, there's always those extra expenses that I personally require in order to make sure the deal doesn't go sideways, or to at least feel better that I don't think it'll go sideways. So you don't mention those in your returns. Do you pay a lot of extra expenses?
No,
on the
I don't pay
underside?
any. The
Oh.
borrower pays the expenses. So you kind of have a couple of questions there. Yes, I do. Everything goes through my attorney, not just an attorney. So I have an attorney. The attorney you work with, make sure they understand RAP loans. A lawyer is a lawyer is a lawyer. That's not the case, right? Some lawyers do this, a real estate lawyer is not necessarily one that knows RAP loans. There's no magic in the term real estate. I've worked with my lawyer, and I've used him since the beginning for 5 years, the same lawyer. And the first several months, the first few loans I did, I was learning myself. I knew nothing. So he was teaching me about the legalities of it and the paperwork, and I was helping him understand the arbitrage and all this kind of things. So now my lawyer, he knows RAP loans. So that's the lawyer I use. So when you choose, work with who you're dealing with, ask questions to see if they really understand the process.
It's really a
Yes.
great question. So Jeff Watson is my rep lawyer. He does all of my documents. And it might be like $1,200 a closing, Jeff, roughly? 1,500, 1,000, whatever. Debbie does, okay. And whatever that is, my borrower pays it. So, did you catch that? I don't pay for doc prep. I don't have any other junk fees either. So whatever Chuck you've got there, you're able to just push that back onto the borrower.
And the borrower
And you've got to
knows
have those
that.
docs perfect. I mean, they've got to, like, I sleep good at night knowing that Jeff and Debbie are doing my docs. Like, I'm not saying they're 100%, but they're really close to 100%. I wasn't going to bring it up, so. We've done it a lot, haven't we? I think I've got 12 wraps out right now.
And a loan that goes out to someone purchasing a rental property the paperwork's going to be a little bit different, because in my paperwork, when I make a loan to a borrower that's a buy and hold, there's also a clause in there, assignment of rent. So that for that deal, if the borrower defaults, immediately the rent payments come to me. So there is a little bit of difference in the paperwork depending on the type of loan, but no, the lawyer does all that.
Hey Chuck, I was wondering if anybody in the room had done any larger scale, like $1 million wraps and putting in 100,000, as just interested in that.
Anybody? Anybody done $1 million wrap loan? I'll tell you how I approached it. I've been asked to do $1 million wrap loan, and I didn't do it because I would rather do 10 $100,000 loans than one $1 million loan. To spread the money out, to give more people a chance to come in to be an underlying lender, to increase their
Smaller
wealth.
loans are easier, but you don't make as much.
Right.
So I've done a lot of small wraps because it's easy for me to insert a co-lender with a small dollar IRA.
So keep in mind, the
They're
idea
more work-
is
they're the same amount of work, and you don't make as much. But
the
they're
idea
easier
is
to put together.
to give other people a chance to grow their wealth. That's the purpose. And like Zig Ziglar said, if you do that if you help enough other people, then you'll receive.
how I live my life right
to
there
have
on
what
that
they
Zig
want, you'll
Ziglar
have what you
quote.
want, and I have what I want.
Here we go. Thanks for asking a question.
Hello, I have a question. So when you talk about you do the kind of long-term loan, then you have an assignment of rent in case the borrower default. Then how does this exactly take place? So you tell the borrower, okay, you defaulted, just have the rent sent to me. I'm just wondering how exactly that take place.
I've never had to do it, so I don't know.
Yeah, there's a assignment, so.
Yeah, the rent assignment, yeah. How would they know that the rent's supposed to come to me
Yeah,
if the
how do
borrower
you-
defaults? If the
So you
borrower
notify
defaults,
the tenant.
Let's ask Jeff. Jeff, you got rent assignment in the documents, right? If somebody was going to have to enact that, what would the process be to notify the tenant to shift the rents to you as a borrower, as the lender?
You want me to answer that question instead of tell Pete Fortunato what he wants to know? Okay. I'm teasing you. Once the default occurs and there's an assignment of rents clause in the mortgage or a separate one outside of, and sometimes I do both, you can notify the tenants in writing that pursuant to the assignment of rents signed by your landlord, they now have to pay the rent to you. The best time to give them that notice is like on the 28th or the 29th of the month, assuming the rent's due on the 1st. And that will often trigger a bunch of phone calls from the tenants to the landlord going, this dude Chuck's on my doorstep with a couple of pieces of paper that you've signed saying I got to give him the rent instead of you. What's going on? And then that borrower may call you, Chuck, and figure out the deal. That's usually how that works.
That's leverage. It's another form of leverage.
Thanks,
It's a good
Jeff.
question on rent assignment. All right,
Yeah.
Mark. Happy birthday to you. Here you go.
Thank you. I got a two-part question. One is, where do you find those guys that go out and do the ARV? I mean, look at the repair type stuff. I mean, the guy, I've talked with insurance people before that can, put a number together and say this is what it's going to cost to repair as a contractor. That makes sense. But where do you find those guys, and when do you have a contract signed? Because that's going to cost money to forward into the deal in case you choose not to do the deal. So it's kind of when do you put that charge to them? And
Contractor, or it could be a home inspector. Go ahead, Chuck.
And
How do you find that guy?
You meet both. This is how you meet them. Be in the room. Show up to the meetings. Not necessarily these meetings. This is a United States meeting, but the local RIA meetings, these people are in the room. I've met Corey Murphy, an inspector, and he would, at the drop of a hat, if I asked him to, he'd come and look at a house for me, no doubt. Pete DeWorkin is another one. These are all in Richmond. These are local people in Richmond, and that's who I was talking about earlier. That's his job. That's what he does for a living, is inspect, evaluate properties for rehab, set up rehab budgets, and his work is solid gold. But you just come to RIA meetings,
much does he
introduce
charge
yourself,
for
and
doing
meet
it?
people. The $300, $250.
Okay.
And by the way, I wouldn't mind paying that. If it keeps you out of a deal that somebody think it's going to be, this happened once. The borrower was thinking it was an older house, 1910 or so in Richmond. The borrower was thinking $45,000 for repairs. Now, this was back a few years ago when I didn't realize. Right now, if somebody said a 1910 house, $45,000, automatically I'd say there's no way. But back then I was thinking, okay, I had Pete go look at it, and it was closer to $90,000. So if I'd have made that loan, I could have lost, once the borrower went in the hole, I could have lost $30,000, $40,000, $50,000. So $200 all day. But just be in the room, meet people.
So everybody knows a realtor, right? So you can get your realtor friend, brother, sister, aunt, uncle to,
There's a realtor in the room.
Wow.
So everybody's got that going. You can get a BPO from them or a CMA, whatever they're going to give you. But you guys make the docs whatever you want. You just pass that forward, or you say that, hey, I'll loan, but you have to pay for an appraisal, right?
Yeah, and that any expenses, that expense as well as any other draw fees. A lot of lenders have draw fees because I've got to go to a property, drive to a property, go look at the property before I issue the draw. But all of that is in the initial paperwork. So when the borrower says, I agree to accept this loan, all of those expenses, there are no hidden expenses. All of it's right there, and those are the only fees there are, by the way. It's not a lot of fees, but those are the expenses. They're all in the document right up front. So thanks, Forrest.
Oh, yeah, hang on. 1 second. Let's see.
Ooh, I'll throw this out while he's doing whatever. Earlier, I heard somebody say, a couple people say, just in chatting and networking, what they were trying to do. This is an extra bonus. It has nothing to do with RAP loans. Stop trying. Stop trying.
Preach it, Chuck.
Because I guess someone's coming. So because Think about this. When do you hear someone say, I tried?
That's a failure.
Using the word, I'm trying to do something, leaves the door to failure open. Close the door. I'm doing. Now, I talked to a guy, and by the way, that's why I don't have any friends. Because,
Chuck, I'm your friend.
Because, thanks, Jim.
You've got a friend.
And you don't use the word try. Because, I interrupt people right in the middle of a sentence. Stop using that word. Don't use the word try. Now, I had a guy, I did that, and he said, but I am trying to find a deal. And I said, okay, tell me, what are you doing to find a deal? He said, well, I'm driving for dollars, I'm making phone calls, and he named 3 or 4 things, and I said, say that. Instead of I'm trying to find a deal, say, I'm out there driving for dollars, I'm making phone calls, I'm sending out cards. Say what you are doing. Yeah. It's empowering.
Chuck, tell us about verts.
Verbs?
Verts.
Verts?
Introvert, extrovert.
There aren't
Closing.
any. Now, yes, I know there might be a few introverts in this room. Probably there. If I ask how many introverts, I'm not asking. Don't raise your hand. If I ask, because I don't want to embarrass you. No, this is just Chuck Gloverosophy. Philosophy, Chuck Gloverosophy. There are hardly any introverts or extroverts in this room. People look at me and say, wow, are you an extrovert? No, I'm not an extrovert. Last night at the networking, I left the room for a little while just to recoup, just to re-energize. So, but the thing of it is, there's an extreme here and extreme there, and we only see ourselves in the extreme. I'm an introvert. I'm putting myself way over here. I'm an extrovert, way over here. The introvert has pressure. Just 3 days ago, I had this conversation with somebody. She says, I have to go into a room. I have to meet people. I said, stop right there. Go into the room and stop thinking about having to meet people. What you do is, now there are people who are less comfortable, and there are people who are more comfortable in social situations. I get that. I fully agree. If you're very uncomfortable, when you go into the room, don't talk to anybody. But do this. Don't sit on the side and don't stand in the corner. Stand in the middle of the room. Other people in that room, if it's a real estate event, they want to meet you. They want to meet other people. They want to you have something they can leverage. They have something you can leverage. If you stand in the middle of the room, they're more likely to come up and talk to you. You don't have to say a word. Or you can say hi. But that's all. And then let it just organically. It just happens organically. If you're off on the side, nobody's going to come over here and congregate if you're over there in that corner. Not too many people are going to walk way over here. There are some people who will. On the other hand, so take that pressure off yourself. Just enjoy. Just breathe. And just stand in the middle of the room. If you're the introvert, they put pressure on themselves too. I have to go in there. There's 50 people in that room, and I've got to meet a bunch of them. No, you don't. Just go in the room and be friendly. If you are more comfortable in situations, don't even think about it. I've got to do this. I've got to do that. Just go in the room and be friendly and talk to people, and it'll happen organically. It'll happen naturally because somebody says, I'm an extrovert. Then I put pressure on myself. I haven't said hi to that guy yet, and I've shook hands 120 people, but not him yet. I've got to get over there. Don't put those pressures on yourself. Just enjoy being.
Think about instead of I have to, I get to.
Yeah, that mindset shift is everything. You don't have to, you get to.
And how many people?
That shifts everything.
How many people have you heard say, I get to go to work?
Chuck, we get to go to Nicaragua. You got to go to Africa.
Going to Africa in the summer?
Yeah.
And next September and October, I'll be in Europe, going all the way across Europe for a month. So.
You get to,
but
you don't have to. It's not a get-rich-quick scheme. It's work. And one of the biggest challenges, one of the biggest challenges in wrap lending is finding underlying lenders. Because I do coaching after I teach this is the class that I teach online, Zoom class, and after that I do coaching for those who want more, to want to be walked through step-by-step, kind of handheld through an actual wrap loan. And that's what people say, well, how do I find the underlying lenders? And we kind of talked about, like my dentist, that's how you do it. You just say, this is what I do. And I'll ask the people that I'm coaching, I say, tell me what you would say. You have a person you want to approach and see if they're interested in being underlying. And they go into a speech.
Well, I'm a lender, and I bring other people into deals, and then I do this. And I say, look,
Get rid of the word I.
just stop talking. Just say, tell them what you do, and then say, sound like something you might be interested in. You know, so maybe never make guarantees. I don't ever guarantee you're going to make 9% on your money or 10 or whatever. No, because all investment is a
Chuck,
risk.
I'll shift and I'll just say, instead of asking if they're interested, I'll say, do you know anybody who might be interested? And they may say, well, that's me. It's even easier. Takes all the pressure
It's easier for someone who's a little less comfortable.
Yeah.
For someone who's a little more comfortable, me, I'll ask my dentist. I didn't ask my dentist, do you know somebody? I said, would you be interested?
More bold.
He pulls out a business card with his personal phone number. But that you get out in it could be your next door. Anybody read the book The Millionaire Next Door? You don't know who you don't know who has may not be a million, who has money in an account. They've never thought much about it. They're just living a kind of a
Who would have
average
thought
life.
Chuck's a rapper? You never know. The
Well, you know,
rapper next door.
People, because
I've been trying to get Chuck to write a book, and
I've never
we're working on
I've seen myself as a math person. I remember, anybody remember, you know when I discovered that math and I didn't get along that well? 11th grade. Anybody remember 11th grade? That was a long time ago for me.
I do.
11th grade, I think it was trigonometry, and I had a wonderful teacher who just helped me through it. I wasn't doing so well. And so I did a rap video about not being a math person, but changing the perception. 11th grade, you know, the thing I remember about 11th grade, that was the best 3 years of my life.
All right, on that, we're going to close. How about a round of applause for Chuck Glover?